So I guess I was the kid he was the most concentrated on, but then he sent me to boarding school.
At what age?
At 11.
Welcome to You Got This, Dad. My name is Thomas Huisking, and today I'm coming to you from Oaxaca. My very special guest is Darius Metcalf, a man I've known since we were 19 years old. First of all, thanks for being here.
My pleasure, sir.
I'd like to jump right into the deep end.
Please, go ahead.
How many kids did you want to have, and why?
2,
Why?
because I was an only child.
So, but why 2? Why not 10?
Because 10 is too many. 2 is good. And 2 girls I wanted.
You didn't want boys?
No boys.
Why?
Never. No, I wanted girls. That's all I wanted.
So
I wouldn't have minded if I had a boy, of course. But I wanted girls. That was my... I think girls bring a better world. They bring a better ideal of a world.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
boys, too many boys, aggressive, this and that. Girls should, yeah, I wanted girls.
How old were you when you had
And-
kids?
27.
What? That's so young. And you knew, like, hey, were
Yeah,
you
27, yeah.
were you just not being careful, or you made the conscious decision, let's make a
Not
baby?
being careful.
Ah.
Yeah, but yeah, kind of like, yeah, not being careful. And the first one was conceived in Venice,
Italy.
Italy, of course.
Okay, well that's kind of cool.
That is kind of cool.
So it was a romantic thing, and you just weren't being careful, and then all of a sudden it's like.
We found out that that Julie was pregnant.
So one of the unique things about Darius is your mother's Mexican, your father's American, you live in France.
Yes.
How did they go about consciously trying to make sure you were a trilingual kid, or did they? They just, I mean,
Who, my parents?
yeah,
or-
it feels like you're, like
Well, I
that
was-
generation didn't really think about like my kid's going to speak 3 languages. It just sort of naturally happened.
Well, the first language, my father spoke English and Spanish to me, and Spanish wasn't great,
Right.
so you know, so it was more English, and I did have a big relationship with the States, with Arizona, with my grandmother, so a lot of English. So I had English there and Spanish in Mexico, and then after grammar school, I was sent to the States to study. So then English started, but I didn't know the third language until I was 15.
Ah.
I started learning French. I didn't know French when I went to study in France.
And now your French is pretty good. Huh?
And my French is pretty good now. Probably the one that I speak, that I write and all that, the worst is Spanish. Because I had English in junior high school and then French in high school and English. But Spanish, grammar and all that, I stopped at 11 years old.
So you have super international kids. How important is it for your kids to speak 3? I mean, your kids speak 3 languages too. It's like
Well, one of them speaks 3 languages. The older one, Celeste. Paloma, everybody always criticizes me for that in France, that I don't speak Spanish to Paloma.
right.
Or English, but I don't have any really Mexican friends or a reality in France that brings me to speak more in Spanish. So when I start speaking Spanish, boom, I jump to French directly.
You would have to make a conscious decision to be like, I'm only ever going to speak to.
I tried it
Paloma.
already. It doesn't work.
Doesn't
or not
work.
anymore. Well, yeah, I tried it. It lasts maybe like a day or something,
And then you
boom,
forget.
And then I forget.
Okay. But I mean, you say she
But I-
doesn't speak 3, but she does.
Yeah, but she's starting little by little, like Celeste. She spoke Spanish because she had a nanny, Colombian nanny. Then English, she didn't really speak English until she went to an international high school.
Okay.
And that's where she was pushed to speak English, which is the way I think people can learn also,
Yeah.
if you have an international lifestyle.
How important is English in France today, though, relative to other countries? Does everyone kind of speak it now? I mean, the impression you get is that when Americans specifically go to France and try to speak French, the French will just be like, why don't we just speak in English?
No, French are horrible with people that don't speak
French.
good. Yeah, French well. They're always correcting you. They're very aggressive with that, and they don't try to make the effort.
But they all pretty much know English.
They all know English a little bit, but they don't like to make the effort. They're not like Mexicans that would make the effort more.
Right.
Yeah. No, in French.
And he speaks from experience, so.
Yes, I do.
Let's go back a little bit.
Tell me.
Would you say your father was a positive, powerful influence in your life? Or is it complicated like everyone else?
I think he was, since he was an artist and all that, very concentrated on himself. So not that concentrated on me or any of his other kids because he was married 5 times.
Right.
So I guess I was the kid he was the most concentrated on, but then he sent me to boarding school.
At what age?
At 11. So, but boarding school far, Mexico to Massachusetts, so that's a 5-hour plane ride.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that was hard. But he was not the most, he wouldn't, he cared, but he was not like invested 100%.
Right.
My mother a little bit more, but they both sent me, so.
Did you try to push back on that? I assume an 11-year-old is like, get me, I don't want to leave.
Not really, I didn't really have a choice. It was mostly over there, once the first couple of months that I really suffered, because I was pretty young.
Yeah.
But then after, I just lived with it. And then it became a reality, and then I had to do junior high school, so I was 4 years there, and then I had to, because I had ESL also. So
were you writing him letters like?
I was writing my mother letters.
Okay.
Like, I hate you.
So.
Like, my mother has the letter still.
Right.
Yeah, it was not a happy
Like,
time.
how could you do this to me? I'm
how
only
could you do this to me? And I'm only 11. I would.
But that was in very bad Spanish, right? Because you were.
Oh yeah, that was in very bad Spanish. And but I would call. We were able to call sometimes. Like I think it was something like twice a week.
Do you think there were any kids there that had a pot? Because this is something that I've known about for a really long time, and I'm really glad that we get to talk about it. Is there any child that is well adapted enough to be sent away from home at 11 years old and have a positive experience?
Well, there were others there, and Mexicans, but they already had a clan. So it was friends that were already in grammar school that left together.
Right.
So a lot of my friends that are now very good friends, but they were already in school together, so they were like 5 or 6. So it felt much less, and they were from the city. So I was from the little town. Spanish was like local Spanish, and so they made a lot of fun.
Yeah, but I mean, what you know about 11-year-olds now, having raised 2 that are well beyond that, do you think any 11-year-old should be sent to boarding school in retrospect?
11-year-old is a bit young, but my daughter, Celeste, she went to boarding school when she was 13.
Okay.
13, yeah. She went 13 until she was for 4 years. So 13, end of 13 till she was almost 18.
What is the value in boarding school, in your opinion?
I think the value in boarding school is that, well, for example, when you live in a big city and you're kind of starting to do the bad things in school, and you can see that could maybe go the wrong way. I think it sets a little bit of it sets a purpose. And this type of boarding school, like sports and all that, it sets a purpose. It gives you a little bit of like a grown-up kind of reality. That you have to study by yourself, do the sports, do this and that, and not just like, well, let's all go and party.
Yeah, right.
And let's smoke this and let's smoke that, and that can take you another way.
Well, why didn't you have your other daughter go to boarding school too?
Because she is totally different. She is with Paloma, you don't have to do anything. She does everything by herself. You don't have to tell her, read this, do your homework. She's like I don't know why I would say that word, nerd, but she's like crazy about school. She like gets home, boom, school, 3 hours, studies, she's there. She's like, well, she talks to her friends, and what about this and this and that, and you don't have to do anything.
Great. Wow.
She does all her exams. She gets a bit too nervous about it, so that makes her very anxious also as a person.
Mm-hmm.
But she is, yeah, she don't have to do anything. She's like,
You with your dad, did it ever get to a point where you felt like you closed some of the gaps and got closer as he got older and you got older, or was it always sort of
no, I think it opened the gaps. There was some opening the gaps that mean that we get closer.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Or closing.
Yeah, closing the gap, meaning like, did you ever come together and get closer?
Yeah, we did. Like my first joint with my dad was at 13.
Okay.
And
First joint.
I don't think I want to say
That's
it.
I think
When my first joint with my dad was when I was 13.
Yeah.
And he was very pretty cool when I saw him, really. So we played chess, and we played chess since I was like, 12, 13, and he would always serve me a little beer with water to play chess every night when I was in vacations. And then, that was
at 13.
Yeah.
Man, your dad.
Yeah. And he was like that.
So then when you found out that Julie was pregnant and you guys were gonna have the baby, did he give you any stellar dad advice?
Well, he was very, very happy and everything, but not much advice there. Not much advice, not like, hey, you should. Yeah, he was not that type of person. But he knew Celeste not that long after. Because Celeste was born in 2009, and he died in 2012.
Okay, so he was...
No, she was born, in 2005, and she died in 2012. So he saw her in some vacations, but didn't have that... he thought she was very cute and all that and this and that, but he was not...
he didn't get to experience...
Thank God, he didn't meet...
The Celeste of 3 languages, world traveler,
no.
All the stuff that she's done.
And my mother neither, because they don't see her that much.
Right, they don't see her enough.
No, enough, yeah.
When you knew that you were going to be a dad at 27...
27, yeah. Julie was 29.
Oh my God.
I was 27.
Like, did you read any books or talk to anybody or
No, I didn't read any books about that. But I went to the classes.
What, like Lamaze classes?
Like when they give you the little plastic baby and stuff, and you have to change it and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to the hospital.
Like you're doing home economics in 7th and 8th grade?
Yeah, I did all that perfect, and I loved it. I love the fact of being a dad, a young dad. I didn't want to be an old dad.
I was always like me.
Well, no, you're not an old dad, but Cristobal, he's an older dad, or Benoit. They have a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old, and they're 47.
Ah, right.
That for me is older dad.
Yeah, well, for the record, there's a lot of old dads out there in Southern California, and hopefully they can...
There's a lot in France also.
Are there really?
Oh yeah, that's why I got, when I would take my daughters to school, I would always say, man, these moms look really, and the dads, they look really old, well, older. I was like, and they have kids at like 50,
Right.
And you're like, yeah. But people are more open about that today. They have kids later and all that and everything. I think at that epoch, it was the time I had to have a kid, and we had it.
How did you agree on how to raise kids? And the thing is, your wife's French, you're Mexican-American, but also sort of French because of the amount of time that you've spent there.
20, yeah.
Was there any talk about, we're going to raise these kids like French kids or Mexican kids,
well, there
with
was,
the discipline of this and that?
There was a lot of talk about the type of schooling they should have. The French people like their public system, so they were into their public system, and I still have trouble with my mother-in-law, and when we talk and everything, trying to get into her that international schools is the way to go today.
Right.
Like the French Baccalaureate, that's like the test that everybody says has the best exam for high school diploma and everything. And I'm like, no, I think it's the International Baccalaureate.
But why do you think that?
Because already all your courses and everything is in 3 languages.
Oh, wow.
And your 3 languages that you take, whichever, if it's German, Spanish, French, Portuguese, Italian, they're all at the same level.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I did that. But Spanish, of course, I was a bit of a level down, but I was doing I was reading literature, and they were all at the same level. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then you have history in English, math in Spanish, biology in French, and it's all mixed up. So I think that's awesome.
And she's like straight French system.
And
needs to be
straight French system. So I was like, well, let's send Celeste to this school, and you had the possibility of doing the American diploma, high school diploma, or the French diploma. I'm sorry to say, the French diploma is better.
It's a little more rigorous.
It's a little more rigorous, exactly. And but then there's the IB. And if you want to go to the international schools around the world, IB is better seen than any other. And I saw that now when we were applying to universities and everything. If you have the IB, much easier to go into English schools, Madrid schools.
Everything
Spanish,
except French schools, probably.
Everything except French and Canadian. And McGill and the other, Concordia.
Okay.
Because they're in French.
So, but now we don't have to reveal where Celeste is now, but the point is it worked for her, the French system, and now she's studying outside of France. Will you encourage your other daughter, your younger daughter, to do the same?
Tell you the truth, I tried to encourage her, but she's more of a, you have people that are different. Like, for example, Celeste, she learned to be, how do you say, when you by yourself and live by yourself and
Independent.
Yeah. Paloma, she's more of a, I want to come back home, and I have a couple of friends.
Well, she's still young.
She's still young, but Celeste was already, she'd take her plane by herself, come back every 15 days, everything by herself. Now she's all by herself. The last year of high school, she said, well, I don't want to be in boarding school anymore. I want an apartment. And I was like, wow, an apartment? So you're like 17. I want an apartment. I don't like boarding school. And I said, okay, well, the apartment, and that's the last year, terminal, which they call is the, I guess, 12th grade.
Yeah.
That's the most important year where you have to have the diploma. And I was like very nervous about that because she has to study by herself. There's no more study halls, no more nothing. She can go out, party, do this, but study, cook by herself, everything. And she got an incredible grade.
See, so you just have to give him a little bit more power.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so there you go. And now she has a little bit too much power. So sometimes I'm like, you sure you went to high school? Because she can go and say some things that you're like, but it's an age.
Right.
There's some kids that are a bit more adult, and there's some that take their life easier. But she's working and doing, and I think she'll do great things. But,
yeah, for sure.
But Paloma's different. She has more of I was talking to this professor of a university in France, and we were talking about universities in France and how complicated and difficult and how it's to get in and everything. And he was like, she will get into anything she wants. Yeah. And she did. She got accepted to everything. And they're not easy in France to get accepted to these schools.
I've heard they're some of the most difficult in the world, yeah.
Well,
super competitive.
Even to high school, you're like, you have to have like A on everything. But to get like, in France, when you get your high school diploma, when you get 15, that's considered the top out of 20.
Right.
So that would be like a 75 in the States. If you got a 75 out of 100 in the States, in France, you're like, wow. You're like incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it must be very hard if 75 out of 100
Oh, yeah, exactly. Not many people get more.
Your academic record is a little bit uneven,
Mine?
let's say.
Mine?
So how were you, did your kids ever push back and be like, look, you didn't need to, you didn't need to get a PhD to do anything, like why should I study so hard? How would you answer that?
Well, they always ask me if they can see my transcripts and stuff. I was like, I have them, and I looked at them last time. Like, for example, my first transcript in France, I didn't speak French. Okay, so I did go directly into high school without speaking French.
Right.
And it was not easy, but I had 50 out of 100 in all the classes, which In France, 51 is passing. So that's pretty good. So and I saw them, I was like, well, and I showed one little one to Paloma, and she was like, oh my God. But yeah, no. Sorry, what was the
Yeah, the question is, they know that, you haven't been so academically rigorous. I mean, this is what's so phenomenal. You have two daughters that have understood the benefit of this and the value of it, in spite of the fact that it's like it was never your path.
Yeah.
How were you able to do that? Because I feel like some of the dads out there will benefit from knowing how you pulled off that magic trick.
Well, Celeste, she still wants to. She's like, I can go work with you. I can do this. I can work directly, and she has some crazy idea.
I don't even need to finish
I didn't
university.
even to finish it at a moment.
Right.
And I said, look, well, let me tell you how it works. If you get out of university, you start working directly, and you go and be a bartender in a bar and do whatever. Or you have a super cool apartment, you have money, you have this, you have friends, you party, you go to school, and you finish your high school, your university, and maybe you do more. And now she says, well, maybe I'll do a master's on communications. And I was like, oh, you like school, man.
Right.
because university is totally different than high school. So she's discovering that, but you get a little job on the side, you do things on the side, so you become more, so yeah. So, but she wanted, at the beginning, she was like, maybe this is not for me.
Yeah.
And she was sad, but it was normal. After high school with people, you leave people that you don't see again. But then the world today with the phones and planes and everything, well, there were planes at my time too, but you can go from in 1 week and go to a weekend and see your friends again, or they come and everybody's happy.
Yeah, well, for the record, like you and I had a rocky start in our university experience, and we turned it around. You could say we turned it around.
Oh yeah, we turned it. I don't know. Mine was a bit lucky because I started working with grandparents and all that of Julie, so that was kind of to follow their success. That kind of helped me in my success, but it was all thanks to them. But it was 20 years of working.
Yeah,
at the beginning.
20 years.
20 years.
It's not
yeah.
really lucky.
No, it's not lucky. At the beginning, I was doing a horrible job. like
what?
Oh, like for example, they'll give you, 500 kilos of bronze that just came out of the foundry, and you have a branch. You have when you do a branch on bronze, you have the leftover, which is like when you take off the mold, you have the little leftover, which is bronze also, and you have to use a machine to take that off. And that is horrible. It's dust, it's bronze, it's brass, it's horrible, and you're all green. You're inhaling horrible things. And Julie with Celeste, she worked until she was like 7.5 months.
What?
Yeah, driving and like that, and doing work because the grandmother said, no, you have to work. The mother wasn't happy, but yeah, we did. Yeah,
you guys earned it.
We earned it. Yeah, we earned it. We earned 20 years of that. It's not great.
How did you approach? I don't recall you being a pretty religious guy. Did you grow up with religion in the household?
Oh yeah. Well, no, not with my parents. No, my father was
an atheist.
An atheist total. My mother was atheist too. My grandmother, from my mother's side, no, I went to church with her two times a day.
Very Catholic. Two times a day?
2 to 3 times a day when I stayed with her. She was more than Catholic. She was like, like every morning, before lunch. I was like, oof. She was a tough one. My other grandmother, she was a Protestant, so she was more like, she came from German, Swiss, and all that. So
they don't mess around.
They don't mess around. Yeah. But no, the Mexican, yeah. And my father, he was anti-religion, anti-establishment. Yeah, he was.
But did you bring any of that to your kids? So then, how did you teach them about what everyone else thinks about religions and the different deities?
Julie's parents are not religious either, the grandparents either, and most of the people, and they go to Catholic school. So they went to Catholic school because most of the private schools in Paris. Public private schools, they're all Catholic.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So you have a church in the school, you have all that, and you have 1 hour of religious,
Oh,
Sometimes Paloma jokes to me and she says, well, I'm going to become Catholic or maybe a Muslim. And so I'm no, wait, chill out. I'm against religion. I think, well, that's my point of view. Huh?
yeah.
I think it's doesn't make you more open or anything. I think it's...
Usually it doesn't make you more tolerant, that's for sure. I mean...
It doesn't make you more tolerant, and we live in a world where people are more educated than before. And they go more with education than going with the religious path and all that. And
okay, now how about politics? I mean, France is traditionally a very politically embroiled country where we see, at least in our press, we see workers striking, we see...
Well, you see the difference between my two kids. One is totally to the, well, not to the right like that, but she's more of a capitalist person.
Right.
And the other one, she's more of a socialist person.
Wow.
Because the other one has to deal with public school and private school and all that, and the other one goes to a very private school with only rich people. Very rich people. So she is more like talking about watches, talking about cars, talking about this. She wants to earn money.
Yeah.
And she likes money, but why not? I'm not against it. You just have to do it intelligently.
Sure.
And Paloma, she doesn't, like Celeste, you can give her money and she'll spend it. Paloma, she won't spend it. She's like, but for example, Paloma, she goes and if there's any leftovers or this or whatever, she goes, I'm going to find a homeless person and give it to them. And she goes out and finds a homeless person.
Wow. Without you telling her,
no, it's she that does it. I didn't say anything.
Wow.
No, so that's different.
Have they started like having an opinion about the different political stuff that's going on, for example, like with the ultra-right, that was a big scare just a couple of weeks
everybody
ago.
Was shocked with that. Paloma, she's, I don't know, the only thing that Celeste tells you is that I would love to pay less taxes, this and that, so she's starting already with that. That's not very social.
Right.
But she is social, but not, when you go to private school with all rich kids,
the stuff they talk about isn't
it's not like should we save the world or help him a bit? No, they're not. They're all like, woo, let's just party and get watches and see how we can earn money and like this and like that. It's it's very.
Well, do you think that's good, or is that?
I don't think no, it's not great. But there's a moment, like in high school, it happens. It's like that. But in university, then when you meet other people, and so now she meets other people that have like a clothing store or one that has a jet, another one like that, but you have a little bit of everything. And she's very, and she knows how to divide and see it. She's friends with everybody, but she says, oh, he talks too much about money. No, he's like this, he's like that. And so she has a little, and very open reality.
Right.
And so she likes everybody. She's not racist at all. If I say something bad, like laugh about something or something, she'll be like, oop, that was not good. Oop, they're very, they have that anchored in them. So that's pretty cool.
One of the things that you told me that has sort of been impressed upon me forever was that you went to like a summer camp that was like survival skills. Right?
Jameson Ranch Camp.
Yeah, right.
Cristobal, he went there too.
He went there too?
Yeah. I don't know if he survived there.
But what was the deal? You ride horses, you learn how to like...
So I went to 2 camps.
And who sent you there? Your dad was
my dad.
My son needs to go...
We were looking for camps. My son needs to go in the summer, not just stay in Lake Havasu City.
Hang on, was that subtly just a way to get you out of the house in the summertime?
That was, that was kind of a way to get me in the house.
Get this guy out doing something.
So I went to Jameson Ranch Camp, and there, you would live in like your beds were outside, so you would have just a piece of wood, and when it rained, you put a little tarp, and we were all sleeping like that. And so you had the younger ones, the older ones, and it was, I don't remember exactly the names of each place, but then you had the girls in another place, and every night you would sing on a campfire with forgot his name, but
that's not important.
But in the morning we would wake up 6 o'clock, go get all the vegetables, cold shower with a hose, That was rough. And a lot of trekking and hiking and camping. And I did all the camping I needed.
That's why you never camped
No,
since.
never camped again. So I did, first year, I went there 4 years. So first year I went there for 2 weeks. Second year I went there for a month. Third year I went there for a month and a half. And fourth year I went there for 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so a lot of camping. And then you would like make your own ice cream, and if you didn't finish your food, you could not get dessert. All those kinds of, and then you had all this like art, swimming, pole vault, not pole vault.
Was it co-ed or was it just boys?
It was co-ed.
Wait, but why didn't you send Celeste to that camp after?
Celeste in that camp?
Not a chance.
No, Celeste in that camp would like probably run away or something. Yeah, no. Celeste went to tennis camp.
Okay.
In the south of France.
Right.
Yeah,
it's
she
a
was
little
not
different.
Yeah, was not picking green beans and stuff like that. And
But you knew that the summer camp experience had a big impact on you, and so like the kids.
And but I always was a bit afraid of sending my kids that far away. I always had that thing of being close to them also. Because Mexico to California, okay. But France to California,
Right.
that's a 13-hour, 12-and-a-half-hour flight and this and that. So I was very, too far. Always wanted to be a little bit close.
You guys are going to be empty nesters, as they say, in
In a couple of years, yeah.
in probably what, 4 years?
In probably 4 years, yeah.
Have you talked?
It depends on where the university is, but yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true. If she goes,
If she goes to Paris, well, she'll be there.
do you think that's a possibility?
I think that might be about. It depends because it's so complicated how to get into colleges. But she has told me a lot. I want to go. I want to be somewhere else. I want to go to high school here. I want to go. I want to Madrid, maybe London, the States. I don't know. I could feel a bit of. I want to get out.
Well, you're kind of a rarity in our group. You know, our friend Matthew just had a baby. He's 46, so he is what you would consider an old dad. You're a young dad.
Yeah.
And you still are. So you're going to be in 4 years completely without the kids around. Have you talked about what that looks like for you and Julie? Like,
no, you just keep on.
you haven't been like, well, then we're going to do this. And
No, because Celeste. Yeah, I think that is pretty cool to have a relationship with your kids that is open and that you can also be friends with your kids. I saw this thing about this interview about Michelle Obama that said you should never be friends with your kids, and I was like I'm totally in this because she was saying no, your kids are you are not to become friends with your kids. Your kids are your kids. You have to tell them the errors, but you can be friends and tell errors. I think friends always allows you for your kids to tell you everything, to have the confidence and to tell you, look, I did this, I did that, or he did drugs, he did that, or whatever, and the I don't know how you say it, the assurance or the confidence of being open, and I think it's cool to be friends. So we're friends also. With Celeste, I go out with her friends and have a drink and maybe two, and to go invite them to dinner and everything, and I think that's super important. To know who she's hanging around and to also, not to be a spy, but...
No, I agree with that. Is there anything that's off limits with them? Have they ever asked you anything where you're like, you shut them down and said, well, we just won't talk about that? Or
No, never. No. No, it's always been open like that and everything, and there you are.
If you're ever in Oaxaca, watch out for these things.
That.
It's terrible. Jesus. Do they, because you have daughters, do they think you're a big softie and try and take advantage of the fact that you'll do anything for them?
Yeah.
Yes.
But I can get very mad too. I get mad at like people that don't eat well at table, manners.
The stuff that your dad did to you.
I can't stand manners and people that have bad manners.
Right.
My kids. And respectful things like answering questions, and sometimes just being a bit more involved in others also. Just very important to listen to others, be involved with others, manners, and not just be so egocentric. because with the telephones and everything, we become very egocentric today.
How did you regulate that? I've been waiting to get to that. You did not.
No, how did I regulate that?
Or how have you regulated it, knowing that you know that there are some really negative effects of spending too much time on the screens? Kids these days are super detached,
well,
blah, blah, blah. We talked about it a lot.
Like in vacations, I see that everybody scrolls on their phones, looking on Instagram or this or TikTok or whatever. But when you see exactly what they're really doing, they're talking to all the other kids that have their phones exactly the same thing. So they're writing, and they're like talking on the phone, and it's not like they spend their whole life looking at the phone.
Right.
You know. So at the moment I thought it was that, but no, they're just talking to their friends.
Okay, well that's not so bad.
That's not bad, exactly. It's just that they have the machine with them.
What about pornography? That's available.
Oh, that's available.
Aren't you worried about what they could be exposed to? Or is it just sort of like,
I think
you've done a good enough job up till now?
Yeah, I think they're already intelligent enough to see the difference and not get into that and everything. But it's there. So you can't really block it or whatever.
Have either of your daughters dealt with depression in any capacity that would be like, I know this is an intimate question, but like to a clinical extent, because it's something
just sad, just homesickness.
Just
like Celeste, when
she
changed from high school to university, and she arrived to university by herself. You arrived there, and she called me, and she was like, I don't have any friends, but also she had just left her boyfriend that she loved, that she lived with for a year. So that was sadness, mostly.
Okay.
But that was very quickly forgotten. And then she started to meet friends and clubs and this and going out and whatever kids at 19, 20 do. So no depression. No, because we're very positive and smile, laughter all the time. So I don't see, there was no clinical, nothing clinical about it.
You care a lot about food,
yes,
and good food, just like I do. Have you, do you feel like your work is done there? Because one of the things that I was always terrified of before I had children, I would go to a restaurant and see a kid at a nice restaurant eating like a plate of buttered noodles, and I would be like, I will never have a child that only eats buttered noodles.
Yeah.
You're somebody that cares about really good food. You've had food all over the world.
Well, Celeste, for example, she'll eat anything. She's very, how do you say when you go out and get she's very...
she's worldly in that way. She has a worldly
very
palate.
worldly, and she's like this, oh, let me try that. She has a worldly palate. Paloma, we're working on that. Okay, she's probably the biggest pasta eater you've ever met in your life. That's why we buy a lot of pasta and tomato sauce. But she doesn't like tomatoes, but she likes tomato sauce. But now, little by little, she likes chicken. She likes Vietnamese food, which is, fish, no fish, and all that. But little by little, it'll go into her, I guess. But Julie cooks incredible food, so they know about food. But Paloma, she can do a week with eating pasta. I've seen her do a week at night and do pasta. Then at school, she goes, I love the food at school. And it's pasta. So you're like, well.
My school's food is so good.
But food, everybody in this family, I'm not the only one that loves food. My mother-in-law, Julie, loves food. Her father loves food. Everybody likes food.
My favorite thing you've ever told me is that at dinner time, you guys all gather around and everyone looks angry when
yeah, we like sit down and it's like, wow, eating like that. And you're like, geez. And yeah, we eat very quickly because we're very hungry.
Is there anything that you regret on a regular basis about the way you've been a dad? Do you feel like, man, I mean, there's nothing really that plagues me yet, but I only have 6-year-olds. You've lived with 3 times that with your kids, like.
Maybe I've regretted a little bit sometimes I can't find my words really, but I've regretted, and Julie's there to do it, but I'm not very much into the museum deal and all that cultural stuff because I was pushed into that pretty hard. My dad was like 2 to 3 museums a day. You could do like, so I was like, no more museums for me.
Right.
But Julie loves museums and all that, so it kind of balances out. But that I regret, and maybe the not.
That's not a terrible regret
No.
because you could still sort of make up.
Oh yeah, exactly. Or maybe the language thing of not speaking Spanish and making her.
I see.
That could be a regret, but then I think about it and I'm like, she's so intelligent and everything. She'll just keep on going and make the effort.
If you think about what you could possibly say to other dads, hopefully that are watching and they're like, man, I'm gleaning a lot of hot tips here. What kind of advice do you? There's so many things because of your very nuanced experience with 3 different countries, 3 different languages, the arts, the education, etc. What kind of advice would you give for an expecting dad? New or old? He could either, well, let me ask you this. This is easier. You have a cousin that just became a father recently. What kind of advice did you give him? No, maybe that's too close to home.
I didn't give a lot of advice. Sometimes I would maybe get a little bit, not mad, but a bit like, why don't you get a nanny? Why don't you do this like this? Why do you, one thing I would say, don't become a slave of your kids. That's a
good one.
Don't become a slave of your kids, because that's the worst thing. You have to give them a little bit of space. Don't like spend the whole night trying to put them to sleep. Don't try to do.
Well, who's supposed to do that?
You just leave them there and let them cry until they go to sleep. At a certain age, when it's not, there's certain things. Yeah, don't become a slave. That's the worst thing, is becoming a slave of your kids. Show them openness. Be open with them. International and intelligent, and just be open and thoughtful person for others. But do not become, and mostly do not become the slave of your kids when they're little. That's when one becomes the most, like 2, 3, 4. There, you're like,
that's rough.
it becomes, and there's a lot of new ways of teaching your kids how to be and all these things. We've been having kids for centuries, and look, it's got created great persons. Not because you maybe feed them this way or don't go into the tendencies. You go into the fashions. They're like, oh, now we do this. It's like the keto, like they did this, the fads. Yeah, that's just try to be open, but not a slave of it, because you have a life too.
That's very good advice. Oh my gosh. Nobody has said that. Nobody has said don't be a slave to your kids.
Yeah, a little bit of rigor is good. Getting mad is good also. All that is, you have to make them know that, of course.
Do you recommend spanking your kids?
I was not against spanking. Now it's like, but my daughter says, I remember she would say, you spank me, I'll call the police. Because now I was like, don't worry, I'm not going to spank you. But when they can't call the police, that's when you spank.
That's what you do before they can call the police.
But yeah, like something, if a kid is obnoxious and everything, and a little spanking, why not?
So you did do it, but you don't remember.
Oh yeah, I do. Oh yeah, I remember.
Back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah.
A long time.
A long time ago. Yeah, when they were like 3 or 4, you're like, Jesus. Or just leave them there in the crib and cry and not be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh, don't you have whatever you want? Because then they'll become obnoxious kids, and then you won't be able to tell them. You have to be rigorous. Like stop, like you do with your kids. Stop.
Like
now, yeah, you like stop. No, don't do that. No, get out of the way. Do that. It's not horrible things. It's just you have to show them how to respect you, and not be like, oh, okay, now.
But it's a fine line, right? Because you wouldn't want to do what your dad did, which was basically send you away.
Yeah.
Or at least that's the impression.
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah. Well, yeah. Also, there was the other factor that he sent me away also because I was in a little town. So living in that reality would have been very negative for me.
Right. It wasn't going to be enough for
for what he expected of me. And also, yeah, you can't live in a little village and become a world person. You have to go see the world.
Oh, here's the last one, because we're about to lose our light. You sent your daughter to a boarding school where tennis was like the main focus.
Yeah.
And there had to be a part of you that's like, she might really,
No, I never thought.
You never thought that?
No.
You just did it as an aspect of the discipline and the rigor for
discipline and the rigor,
academics.
just to show her that, and that she knows that and she learns from that rigorousness of waking up, going to sports.
Never hope maybe she would get really, really good?
Because I've seen tennis people, tennis dads and tennis moms. I'm not one of them.
Wow.
I'm not gonna drive and go and do, and because I've known some people and they do that, and they're just slaves of their kids. And I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. If she becomes the greatest, well, then it's because she likes it, but not because I push her to that extreme. I push her to go and play and do this.
What do you think Richard Williams would say about that?
Well, Richard Williams comes from he came from nothing. So he had another purpose in his life. He was
different perspective.
Yeah, if he was sending his kids at 13 to $50,000 schools, and he was paying, and he was doing this, and he had traveled and seen other places and this, and not just lived in Compton.
Right.
I think maybe he would have been different.
Right.
I think his position pushed him to get him out of that. So if you're already out of that, I don't know, unless you really want them to be champions. And also it was the first black and African American that does this and goes into that white reality.
For sure.
But yeah, I think it's also the fact that if he had not everything that he needed, but if he was always in a comfortable position, and then he had traveled and maybe done a lot of other things already, he wouldn't have done that. Maybe he chose another one, go to art school, go to this, maybe.
You're right. Last question. What are you afraid of for your children in 2024? If there's anything.
I'm always afraid of their safety. That's one of the...
Their physical safety.
Physical safety. That's one of the most important things. That nothing happens to them.
How do you do that when they're not even in your same city?
Well, you call them a lot and you write to them a lot. But in Madrid, I'm not that afraid. But like, for example, whatever, anything can happen in France, in the metro, in the subway, walking around. I've seen a lot of people get assaulted, this and that, and never be alone. You give her, you tell her what to do, not to do, and this, that. But that always is one of the things that haunts me the most.
Physical safety.
Physical safety.
Now, why do you think that is? Where's that anxiety?
Maybe because I almost got kidnapped when I was a kid, and twice, and I had bodyguards, and I all the things that I've heard and seen that people can do to kids. And one of the worst things that I would hate is for my kids to suffer. I prefer to suffer in their place, but never for them to suffer that way. That would just kill me. So I would never...
Well, thank you for this interview.
No
for
problem,
your honesty.
sir. You look really tan.
So do you.